All right, welcome to another episode of Tea Time at PhysioX, and today we have Alex Wu. Alex Wu is a Kung Fu master and Tai Chi master, and he's also going to be giving us lessons during the Lunar New Year event on Saturday, February 24th. And I know you do Tai Chi, do Kung Fu, but there's other art forms that you also touch on, right? Can you tell us a little bit about the other things that you do?
Yeah, so my main focus is Kung Fu and Tai Chi, but I also do a little bit of Muay Thai and boxing.
Right. Which one came first? Like, what was the first thing that got you into this whole martial art world?
So the first style that I learned was traditional Tiger Crane Kung Fu, Hung Gar. So I did that when I was 8 years old at Calvin Chin's Martial Arts Academy.
Tell me about what is that?
So it's a southern style of Kung Fu. So basically the style focuses heavily on low stances and really strong, powerful movements. It's not like the sports karate where you see a lot of jumps. It's not like Taekwondo. There's a lot of like jumps and kicks and stuff. It's very grounded, solid footwork and handwork too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you were doing that at 8, and then what came after that?
Yeah, so I started with just learning the basic movements and started learning some basic forms. Then gradually it ended up going into just competing locally at tournaments. Then after doing some tournaments locally, started to do some tournaments around the country and started to become heavily involved in doing that and also doing a lot of performances around Boston too, so.
Yeah, what are these competitions? Like, how is it graded? Like, what goes on? Because I have no idea.
So, for the most part, the forms are graded on precision, cleanliness, and spirit. So obviously, like you'd want to make it as precise and powerful as you can, and also kind of making it lively. You know, like I mean, obviously a lot of people they do the forms with a lot of power. But the difference between making it look good and making it look great is just showing, feeling in the form. So it's kind of like a dance. I mean, a lot of people I don't really like it when people say, oh, it's like you're doing a dance. I mean, no, it's not like jazz or hip hop type of thing, like you're still practicing a martial art, but you're just demonstrating that the choreographed movements, that still is a part of the martial art, but it's choreographed routine. So it's all about the power and the speed and the rhythm and just how you move, and just yeah, and how precise you can do it.
Right. So how do you get yourself into like the mindset of bringing the feeling out of it? Because I feel like you can teach someone the choreography.
Yeah.
But you said they're going to grade you on the spirit of it. So how do you bring that piece into the art?
So honestly, it's one of those things that you can't really teach people, right? It's one of those things where you kind of just see other people do it, and then kind of, you start to imitate like the way they do it, like the spirit. So it kind of sounds corny, but it's like when you watch the really old classic Shaw Brothers, like Hong Kong Kung Fu movies, and see like how they execute their moves, like with spirit, like with me, like it's almost like it's as if you're in a fight. Like how would you look if you're fighting someone? Okay, now take that mentality and put it into when you do the form, right? So it's kind of like a self-learning type of thing. Right. So for the most part, the instructor or the Sifu, like they could teach you the form, like the choreographed movements from beginning to end. They can tell you how to do it precisely, and they can try to tell you, okay, do it with as much execution as you can, right? But then it's more on your own to be like, all right, I need to add some life to this form. All right, so let me think, all right, it's kind of like a trial and error. Let me try it this way. If it works, then great. Then if it still looks kind of sloppy, then let me try to, work on it again, like tweak it some, and it's not just, from beginning to end, it's every movement that you're trying to think of. So it may sound like a tedious process, but once you figure out, okay, I need to do it with precision and with the right speed and with the right stances, you know, the good groundwork and also the spirit, then it's like, all right, I put it all together, and then it just comes with time.
Do you do some kind of mental exercise to kind of get yourself into it?
Oh yeah, definitely. So
Yeah, what do you do?
Whether it's competing or demonstrating, before I do any type of form, I kind of visualize it just in my mind, like, all right, how am I going to do it, you know, when I'm physically doing it? So I kind of visualize myself doing the form, like how I would want to look doing it, and then once I actually do it in person, you know, then it's a little bit easier. So it's kind of like, all right, I'm gonna do it, you know, like it's kind of like a positive, like how do you say it, like, okay, I will do it looking good and not just sloppy. You know, it's like think of it, all right, I'm gonna do it specifically. And I don't know, I'm kind of
right, quick.
Yeah.
You got to put yourself into the mindset
Yeah.
of like, all right, what as an like, I'm putting words in your mouth. Correct
Yeah.
me if I'm wrong. I feel
Yeah.
like you kind of get into the audience and be like,
Yeah.
all right, if I'm an audience watching this art
Yeah.
form, like what do I want to feel from this?
Yeah.
And you're trying to imitate that into your piece,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now you've been doing kung fu for a long time now.
Yeah.
Now, does it get boring, or do you still feel like you have so much more you want to go with kung fu?
No, I mean, with just practicing martial arts in general, I don't really think it's boring because there's always something new to learn. Even if you get really specific, like with kung fu, like there's always something new to learn, and if you're not learning something new, then there's something to perfect. You know, see with me, like I spent so many years like doing demonstrations and competing locally and then, you know, nationally and internationally. So, you know, getting the excitement from that never goes away. You'll always have that. So if anything, over time, you'll just graduate to doing something more advanced, like judging at tournaments or, you know, teaching students and then having them compete. You know, obviously, like when it's time to transition into that stage, you obviously miss those days when you compete, but it's like you kind of feel that excitement for the students, you know, when they're doing it. Because it's almost like, okay, it's like a product of what you've done over the years, right? So it's like you teach them what you know, and then when they're able to take those skills and do really well at competitions, it's like, okay, yeah, it's almost like I competed again for myself.
Right,
You know?
like
So,
you living vicariously
Yeah.
through your students.
Yeah, exactly. So it's definitely a really rewarding experience.
Yeah. So tell me about maybe more like the mental side of kung fu, because I know you do
Yeah.
tai chi, and tai chi there's
Yeah.
this slow movement
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
Like, and for me as a physical therapist, I always
Yeah.
think the way we move and the way our mind connects and the way we
Yeah.
breathe is all connected. Do you
Yeah.
do you find any kind of a mental connection to what you do in kung fu?
Oh yeah, definitely. So kung fu, for the most part, it's an external type of movement where it's very fast paced, you know, generally speaking. So Tai Chi, it's almost like the opposite of it. So it's because you're moving really slowly, and a lot of people, they see Tai Chi as like just an art form for old people because it's just slow movement. But honestly, I tell everyone that it's beneficial for everyone of all ages, you know, because it helps with blood flow, with movement, with recovering from injuries, and just overall staying active. And even my doctor, he said that, hey, like the first, you know, steps in recovering from an injury is, you know, doing Tai Chi, because it's basic movements. You're not doing anything too strenuous, but it's still like helping with that blood flow. So I definitely encourage people to try it out. And definitely, like, if they want to continue to practice and be more committed to it, then definitely do so.
Now, what do you practice on a daily?
Daily, oh, definitely Tai Chi, like in the mornings.
Really?
If I'm
How
not,
long do you go for?
for about an hour.
Okay, an hour in the morning, you would go through your Tai Chi practice.
Yeah, yeah. So if I don't have any private lessons that I teach, then I would do it by myself.
Yeah. What do you gain from that? Like, what makes you keep up that 1 hour practice? It's a long time to take out of your
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah.
What was the benefit that you get from it?
I think it's just keeping my body active, and it's almost like you feel like you did something productive for yourself, right? Because I mean, it's better than just doing nothing. I say, you know.
Of course.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where you set a goal for yourself and say, hey, I'm gonna do this because I know that it's good for me. So to actually physically commit to it, you know, like planning, all right, I'm going to do it in the mornings. If not in the mornings, then at least for an hour after work. At least I'm fitting in that time to maintain that practice. So,
All right, now I want to switch gears a little bit because
Yeah.
there's this one thing we see on your pages that you were in the Cirque du Soleil circuit. Like, talk to me about how that journey went about. So I know you've been going to a lot of
Yeah.
tournaments, you've been in a lot of tournaments,
Yeah.
and then but that is a whole nother thing. Like,
Yeah.
help me bridge that gap.
Yeah. So, I spent probably like 12, 13 years competing, you know, around Massachusetts and all around the U.S. And after that, I spent some years doing some judging at tournaments. And then eventually it got to the point where I was like, all right, I got to do something like more than just this, right? You know, I was thinking about like career-wise. But even with that, this even goes back to when I was in middle school, right? So I first saw Cirque du Soleil when I was, you know, around like 10, 12 years old. And the first show that I saw in Vegas was Ka, and it had a lot of martial arts in it. So the first time I saw that show, I said to myself, man, like when I grow up, I really want to do that. You know, so when it got, you know, later on, when I was in college, I was thinking about all these things, and I was like, you know what? It's about that time where I'm starting to develop like, you know, better skills, and looking at the stuff that they did in that show, it's like, yeah, it's doable. Like it's hard, but you know, with practice, like obviously I can do it. And I just thought about, you know, how that show made me feel. Because it's very rare where you see martial arts and acrobatics in one huge marriage of a production, and from a company that's really like well known. So when you see like thousands of people see this type of show, it's like, it really inspires me, because it's like, it's a really nice way of like putting Kung Fu on the map. You know, because like when you see a circus show, you just see acrobatics, dancing, juggling, those types of things. But when you see Kung Fu, like, man, like you really want to talk about like something that's unique, but in a really great way, then, oh yeah, definitely. It's like you really want to be part of that, you know? So it really made me feel like more passionate in Kung Fu, and just made me even more motivated to train. So it got to the point where I set that goal, and for many years too. So a year after I graduated from college, it was the first time I auditioned for Cirque du Soleil. So the first time I auditioned, it didn't go well, unfortunately. So they just cut me after doing my routine and showing them. And their reasoning was because I had to work on my acrobatic skills. So I just thought of how devastating it felt when I first got rejected from my first audition. I was like, it was so heartbreaking, but at the same time, I was like I can't give up. Like, I want this so much that I just got to continue working towards it, and I'm not going to stop till I get it. So fast forward to 3 years later, 2018, I auditioned again in LA, and that time I got into the database. So that was probably one of the best feelings ever. Like, I was definitely like walking on cloud nine when I got the email, because it's like, man, after all of those years, like, it's, you know, finally gotten to that point. So it's like all of those years of hard work, it's like, is definitely worth it, right? So like 5-6 months after I got the email about getting into the database, they called me about the contract for one of their touring shows. So this experience was really unique, and probably one of the best experiences I ever had, because with this show, it was a brand new show that they were making, right? So it's called Axel, and a lot of people, like, you know, they joke around with me. It's like, oh, Alex, Axel. It's like a mix with your name and stuff. So it's a really unique show, because with this show, it's on ice, and it's like So when I first heard about this show being on ice, I'm like, oh, wait a second, I can't skate at all. I mean, like the last time I skated was in high school, like during gym class. You know, they took me to the local ice rink, and I was holding on to the wall the whole time. So I talked to the director, and I was like, hey, listen, man, like I'll be honest with you. So luckily he was like, no, don't worry at all. We have a nice, you know, big round mat that's going to be set in the middle of the ice. You walk on it and you do your thing there. I'm like, all right, great. So the thing is with Cirque du Soleil, they do tell artists like you have to get used to performing in different environments, in some environments that you may not be used to. You know, so it was definitely different because it's a big round mat, but it's a lot smaller than what I'm used to, like the rings at tournaments, you know. So after getting used to that, it was a lot of months of rehearsal, and then, you know, after that we went on tour, and man, like that feeling of like performing in front of like thousands of people every day, it's like, man, like you almost can't describe it. You have to just be there to experience it. But man, there's not a day goes by that I don't miss it. I think about it almost every day. It's like, man, because you think about like after what 20 plus years of practicing, training, competing, teaching, and judging, it's like to finally be able to say like, hey, like I made it and I was able to do it professionally. It's like one of the best feelings that I've ever had. It's like something that, yeah, it's going to stick with me forever.
Yeah, it justifies all the years of hard work that you put into it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Nice. And how was your parents when they were able to watch you?
Oh, it was great. They couldn't stop talking to our family and our friends about it. You know, can't stop like showing the pictures and videos too. So, yeah, very, very proud moment for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know now, looking forward ahead, you want to go to Las Vegas. And what was your plan for now? Because I know Cirque du Soleil, they had that mishap with the pandemic.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the show had to stop because the world had to stop, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So what is the development there?
It's pretty difficult, honestly. I mean, luckily, I'm still in the database for Cirque du Soleil.
Right.
But
Is Cirque du Soleil still they're still doing stuff?
oh yeah, yeah.
Okay,
they still have touring shows. They still have resident shows right now, and they're actually in the process of making new shows. So it's just difficult because basically, like after them laying us off during the pandemic, it's like I'm back to square one. Like I'm back in the database, but it's like if I wanted to be in a show, it's almost like I have to update my resume and my demo reel and my pictures, and just to like show them that I'm still interested. And then I'd have to audition again, like if it's for a specific show. And then after that, go through like the artistic directors and see if they approve of my skills. And then if they do, then they'll accept me. So it's one of those things where after recovering from my surgery and my injury, like I'll obviously keep up with my training. It's just one of those things where I'll keep training. Then if the opportunity comes, I'll take it. And even if it's just an opportunity to audition, obviously I'll try it out. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, and Las Vegas is the place to be in contact with the right people for this type of thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, and not just like with Cirque du Soleil, but anything entertainment related, like on stage, on screen. It's definitely the place to be at for connections.
Right.
Yeah.
Would you want to be like in a movie?
Oh man.
Yeah.
I mean, so that would be great. I do obviously know that comes with a lot of training, a lot of.
Because you got to act now too.
Yeah.
It's not just.
Yeah, that too. You'd have to spend like at least a year of like training like basic stunts and incorporating that with martial arts and fight choreography, all that stuff. I mean, I've had some background with training fight choreography with my friends out there, but it needs to get to a point where it's more consistent, you know. So I think the plan is once I'm out there, find a job, you know, for income, but also train. Get my knee fully better, you know, like slowly but surely, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that'd be a problem.
Yeah,
like that would just be all right. That's just a step. It just takes its time. Right?
Yeah. So respect the time with the healing, the recovering, and then once that's done, you just really continue with working hard on maintaining that goal. Because I mean, I'll be honest with you, before the pandemic and during the pandemic, you know, my mind was so set on just getting back to Cirque du Soleil. But honestly, it's like if you like, well, me talking about like if I just focus on that one thing, then it's like I'm kind of like, I don't want to say wasting my time, but it's like, why just focus on that mentally when I could be like thinking about other stuff, you know, like other opportunities.
Right.
Because a lot of my friends, they say, you know, like it's good that you want to go back to Cirque du Soleil, but you got to think about other opportunities that you might get, like on stage or like on screen, like stunt opportunities, like because you have the potential to do all of those things. So like any opportunity that you can get out there, you just take it, you know, because in the end, like you're still showing people what you can do, you know. So
I think you have some very wise friends next to you that really cares about you. So I'm very happy about that.
Yeah.
Because if you look at one door only, you're going to miss all the other ones that potentially have a wonderful side to it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. So I don't want to miss those opportunities. So I definitely want to look at them. Yeah.
So walk me through a little bit about just the, actually I want to talk about like your inspirations growing up.
Yeah.
Because we both grew up around the same time, watching kung fu movies and things like that. Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, those were like my big, my big idols, right?
Yeah.
Like who are your big idols growing up?
Oh,
like,
definitely Jackie Chan, Jet Li, Donnie Yen, and a lot of the guys like from the old like Shaw Brothers, like 1970s, 1980s, like Hong Kong kung fu movies. A lot of them. But then there's also this one movie, it's called Red Dragon with Jet Li in it. And he has this son, and he was probably only like 7, 8 years old. And I watched that movie and I saw like how really well like he was moving with his kung fu. And this is when I was 8 years old too. So I was like, oh man, like he's a little kid like me and he's moving really fast, like, you know, like a superhero, kung fu superhero. Like I want to be like him, I want to move like him. You know, so, and it was funny because the dad saw how inspired I was by him. So whenever I get ready for tournaments, you know, dad would always be there, like helping me train and stuff. Like, all right, think about how he moved in the movie, right? And then you just gotta like try and like imitate how he did, you know. So, yeah, so it was pretty funny.
Yeah, so that was your inspiration. I need to go back and check that out. Red Dragon, Jet Li.
Red Dragon.
I remember that movie, but it's been so long.
Yeah,
you know, Jet Li's been through a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I love that about, if you had to pick one though, Jackie Chan, Jet Li, Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard to pick. Which one are you going for?
Okay, I would say Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee?
Yeah,
Why
I would say Bruce Lee. And the reasoning, obviously, I think it's gonna be really cliche, but it's a mix of like how he moved, how he was a mover and shaker for a lot of other Asian artists out there, like especially with the ones that are in the big screen. He kind of like really influenced a lot of people to really get into it, but also his philosophy too on life is like really like, you know, really deep.
Yeah, talk to me about that.
Yeah,
the philosophy part.
Like be like water, you know, that type of thing, you know. So it, in many ways, it kind of reflects on how I see life, you know. So like with life, we're faced with a lot of difficulties and a lot of obstacles, right? And it's like, from what I've learned, if I like keep this stubborn attitude, like, no, like I gotta react in this way, then it's just gonna make it more difficult for me. But if I think, okay, let me move around this situation, like, you know what I mean? Like kind of like
you want to be malleable.
Understand, yeah. Right. If I first take a step back, understand the problem, and think, all right, like what are the skills that I have? What can I do? What can't I do? What's in my control? What can't I control? And just kind of move around with that type of mentality, then it's a better flow of getting through that problem, right? So like, for example, with my ACL, right, it's like I can't just, you know, go immediately back into training, right? Well, not obviously not physically, but mentally too. It's like, okay, if I just keep on thinking, all right, I need to get back to training and exercising, then it's just like, I'll feel like my whole life is rushed. And that just makes me feel more stressed. Then it's like, I don't want to feel stressed because in the end, it's just going to make me feel even more unhealthy, right? So I try to tell myself every day, take a step back, take a deep breath, relax, do some Tai Chi, you know, to help me calm down, you know?
Right, right.
So it's like the more I do that and the more committed I am to thinking like that, like the easier it is for me. You know, so it is kind of connecting with his quote of like, you know, be like water. You know, there's this, you know, be like water, you know, just mentally be more in the flow of things and with whatever life gives you, whether it's bad or good.
Right. Alex, are you a philosophical person?
I would say so. And it's funny because, you know, I'm not really philosophical with people. Like when I talk to them, like, I mean, when I talk to my friends and my family, like it's, you know, more general. But
Right, like on the surface.
Yeah, on the surface, exactly. But more so for like myself, you know, like, cause I do have a lot of alone time and I really think about like what's been happening with my life. So I would say I'm philosophical, like within myself.
Yeah. What are the big thought ideas that you're toying with right now?
Man, a lot. And it's like I don't even know where to begin with that.
Right.
But I would say for the most part is just doing what I did just now. Take a deep breath and really thinking about like, all right, what's going on in my life right now? Like, what are the challenges, but also what are the good things that are going on in my life?
So chewing on a little bit of the gratitude.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, how do you find a gratitude? Like, because I know, well, your journeys after this pandemic, you hit this big, massive milestone of being on the roster for Cirque du Soleil. You performed in front of thousands of people. Energy was super high. And then the pandemic just, right? And then after that, you had tore your ACL, and then now you got surgery, and then now you had to go on the recovery. So how do you find yourself with the gratitude to be able to push through those kind of obstacles? Maybe start with Cirque du Soleil. Like, but where were you, like, how did your philosophy help you out in that point?
So getting into Cirque du Soleil was definitely, it was one of the, honestly, I would say it was the biggest accomplishment I've ever had in my life. Because you're talking about thousands of people that try to get into just the database. And then after the database, you're talking about only a handful of those people that can actually get into those shows, right? So for me to be able to get up to that small point, it's like, man, like you really accomplished something after all those years of training, of hard work too, right? So that's something that I really try to remind myself of, you know, whenever I feel overwhelmed with the bad things that happened recently, like with getting laid off during the pandemic and with my ACL surgery and my injury. Because, I mean, any type of injury puts someone in a really dark place, right? Feeling like, almost like a feeling of hopelessness, right? So for a really long time, you know, I felt like, man, like, not like giving up. I don't want to say that, because I've told myself from day one, like, no matter what happens, don't give up on yourself and just keep going, no matter how bad something gets, right? So for a good few months, I was in that dark place where it's like, I don't want to give up, but what do I do? You know, because I get laid off, and I get laid off from the show. I try to audition for a show in Vegas, and I get rejected, and then now I get this injury on my knee, probably like one of the worst knee injuries that you could get, right? So it's like, you know, what do I do? So I ended up telling myself, you know, you have one of two options, right? You can either play the victim and be like, oh, woe is me. Like, I have all this stuff that happened to me, and it's like, oh, what am I gonna do? Or I could say, all right, you know, this stuff happened. Okay, be patient, but also remember, you know, the accomplishments that I made. You know, think back to, okay, I did it. You know, it's not like I'm still trying to get to that goal. I did reach that goal, right? And I did it. You know, I can, like, it's something that, and my mom and dad always said, like, this is something that no one can ever take away from you. Like, you're gonna have that accomplishment forever and ever. Like, no one can take it away from you. So I try to remind myself, like, all right, I did it. And if I can do it, if I was able to do it back then with patience and with consistent hard work and with just going with that flow and with the right timing, I can do it again. So I really try to remind myself that every day, and just with physical, but also consistent exercising, it helps me get past like the dark moments and the dark days.
Yeah, and I think your comeback will be even more spectacular than even the first time you got there. Because now you have that story to tell of how it all happened, and then you can come right back.
Yeah.
You just kind of more interesting story when you have the setbacks.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, there are days when, and I feel, this is natural. I do feel like there's days where I question it, I'm working really hard, I have this mentality, like, okay, I'm gonna do it. Like I know, I have a feeling something big is gonna happen. But then there's also days where I was like, is something big gonna happen? Like, is life gonna end up being the way I want it to be? Like, how is it? Like, there are those days where I question. I would actually say every day, like, there's a moment like, all right, is it gonna turn out the way I want it to be? But then there's also moments where like, yeah, this is a new year. I'm in the process of recovering from an injury. I'm doing good at working hard and getting it better, regaining strength. So if I just keep on with that, like, okay, keep going mentality, then it'll happen. So it's kind of like a little battle that I have with myself, but.
And I'll tell you right now, you are not alone in that battle. Because I personally battle that every single day, but with more with entrepreneurship and business. Because we do put in all this effort, and there's no guarantee what actually will happen. I just know that I'm just going to keep pushing through. And I think we all need just reminders of why we continue, right? Just looking for those mini wins. That for me, it would be like a client who's able to do something that they couldn't do before.
Right.
They're able to conquer the fear of moving this certain way. And, and the eyes light up and say, oh my God, that's not painful anymore.
Yeah.
And that grounds me. Because I'm looking like 5-10 years down the road, what is this going to be like? But then what I'm losing is the present day, and we need those present day wins to push us through.
Oh no, exactly.
And I think that's exactly kind of what your philosophy is coming around to.
Oh,
you need to collect those little wins,
Yeah, no, definitely. Because it's just like what you said. Like, I mean, it's not as often now, but I still think about, the future, long-term future, like what's going to happen, like a year or 2 years from now. And it worries me. Sometimes it stresses me out. But then it's like, what I've also realized is that while I'm stressing about all that stuff, like the days are going by so quick, and it's like, wait, what happened to time,
Right.
And then it's like, if I really want to, enjoy my life, I got to enjoy it every moment, and then just to be more appreciative of, the stuff that happens, big or small.
Right.
Yeah.
This question, does Tai Chi help you be more present, or is just the practicing the art form help you be more present?
I think so, because with Tai Chi being a slow movement type of practice, like it almost forces you to kind of like slow down your mentality, or just slow down like the flow of your mind. Because I feel like every day when people they get up, they go to work, they commute to go to work, they work and they deal with all the people, then they drive back home, and then they deal with whatever else. It's like their mind is kind of going like 100 miles an hour. So when you do Tai Chi, which is really slow, it's like it forces you to, okay, all right, like slow down a little bit, relax.
Right, because you can't do it fast.
No,
right? So
you can't.
Yeah, I love it because it forces you to be present.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of our clients love you about it. And I think also the way that you teach it is very good.
Yeah.
Because you go one move, and then once everyone can do that one move, and then you kind of add something on top of it.
Yeah.
Just little building blocks.
Yeah.
And I think that even comes back to your philosophy of just, hey, what can I do? And and just build one thing on top of the other. And by the time, after 30 minutes or an hour, you have been able to do like this 3-minute like choreographed movement. That in the beginning, you're like, there's no way I'm going to able to do that.
Yeah.
So in some way, you're also collecting these wins during that whole process.
Yeah, exactly.
As well.
Yeah.
Now, when you're doing your Tai Chi practice now, of course, you know, I've taken your class and I've learned the movements.
Yeah.
Now I'm sure like with the amount of time that you put in, do you just freestyle it now? Like is there a freestyle component to Tai Chi, or is very much structured? Like this is the form and these are the steps that you have to take.
It's still structured. See, with Tai Chi, it may look like from the outside that it's, you know, whatever you feel best, you know, you just move, but if you do it completely freestyle, then you're not really doing Tai Chi like the proper way, you know.
Right,
so
right.
it's so like we mentioned, it's an ancient practice, so it's something that's been taught like for many years. So it's basically just a set choreographed routine that you're learning, and you just practice it like from the beginning to end. Just those set movements.
Yeah, how long is the whole entire routine from start to finish?
Oh, so some forms they could be either 3 minutes to 3 to 4 minutes, but if you do a full Tai Chi form, it could be like 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
10 minutes nonstop with the whole movement. And when you're done
Yeah.
with 10 minutes, do you just go back to the beginning and start over again, or do you go to a different form?
I think with practicing Tai Chi, like if you want to practice it, like just the form, then it's just that 10 minutes, just from beginning to end. But with Tai Chi, there's also basic drills that you can do. They're just kind of repetitive, you know, and that, you know, you don't have to do for more than like a minute, you know, for each drill at least.
Okay, guys.
Yeah.
So there's like a little bit of a mix and match
Yeah.
that you can do of that.
Yeah.
I want this is a question that I'm not sure
Yeah.
if you know too much about.
Yeah.
Qi. Discussion of Qi. I don't know much about it. I
Yeah.
know it's internal energy.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about it and how does that play in?
You know, Qi, it's a really interesting topic. It's something that unfortunately I haven't really gotten a lot of knowledge of like over the years, because with my experience with Tai Chi, it was been more of like learning the moves from beginning to end, you know, how to move. But with Qi, it's, from what I've learned from my instructors, is that it's really just, you know, it's like you said, like, you know, like gathering energy from within and just kind of like releasing it, right? So with Tai Chi, it may seem difficult to do that because you're just, you know, like moving slowly. But it's like while you're moving, you're also helping with that blood flow, which is also helping with that energy flow. You know, so it's like even though you're doing a slow movement, you still feel accomplished physically, almost like kind of like a workout. It's like you'll feel a little bit tired, but internally, like you'll feel a lot more like, oh, okay, like I'm more like alive. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, it just wakes you up a bit more.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. That's just my question, because I don't know much about it either.
Yeah.
Except I know
Yeah.
there is a big part of it that's
Yeah.
that's inside
Yeah.
the art form. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Very good. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. So I will see you in a couple of days on Saturday. Alex will also be doing the lion dance performance for us to open up our Lunar New Year celebration, as well as leading a Tai Chi class for those who have signed up. All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Jay.